Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yamuna Yamuna Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yashodanandana Rajadanandana Yamuna Yamuna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Jai Radha, Jai Radha, Jaya Radha Madhura Jaya Radha Madhura Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Gaura Premanandi Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pri Vrajagacharya Stotra Satya Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Sirabai Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Sri Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Sanghaviti Sangacharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samavata Bhakta Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jainitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Taksurambaritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Jita Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanditam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakan Saragaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Pirubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Ram Shaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, let us first offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahmasamhitam Itamasloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasya Namaha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantara, as the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God as Sridham Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Om Sarabhyaya Namaha. Mukam karoti vātaram pangom langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Sridharam dinataranam yatkripatamaham vande Sridharam dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our morning Bhagavatam class. Sun is not too visible today. We continue from canto number 2, chapter 5, entitled The Cause of All Causes. Today is text number 12, huh? Yeah. Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Yan Mayaya Durjayaya Mam Vadanti Jagat Gurum It is word by word. Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Yanmayaya Durjayaya Mam Vadanti Jagat Gurum. Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Yanmayaya Durjayaya Mam Vadanti Jagat Gurum. Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Yanmayaya Durjayaya Mam Vadanti Jagat Gurum. Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Dhimahi Yanmayaya Durjayaya Mam Vadanti Jagat Gurum. Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya dhimahi Yanmayaya durjayaya Mambadanti Jagatgurum Tasmai. Unto him Namaha. Offer my obeisances. Bhagavate. Unto the personality of Godhead. Vasudevaya. Unto Lord Krishna. Dhimahi. Do meditate upon him. Yet by whose Mayaya potencies, Durjaya, invincible, Mam, unto me, Vadanti, they say, Jagat, the world, Gurum, the master. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the Supreme Controller. I kindly repeat after me. I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the Supreme Controller. Report. As will be more clearly explained in the next verse, keeping us in suspense, the illusory potency of the Lord bewilders the less intelligent to accept Brahmaji, or for that matter, any other person, as the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji, however, refuses to be called this, and he directly offers his respectful obeisances unto Lord Vasudeva, or Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, as he has already offered the same respects to him in the Brahma Samhita 5.1. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarvakaranam Karanam Sarvakaranakaranam. Translation. The Supreme Lord is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord in his transcendental body, the ultimate cause of all causes. I worship that primeval Lord, Govinda. End of the quote. Brahmaji is conscious of his actual position, and he knows how less intelligent persons, bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord, whimsically accept anyone and everyone as God. A responsible personality like Brahmaji refuses to be addressed as the Supreme Lord by his disciples or subordinates, but foolish persons praised by men of the nature of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses feel flattered to be addressed as the Supreme Lord. Why such persons take pleasure in being addressed as God, or why such persons are addressed as God by foolish admirers, is explained in the following verse. So there's an intimate connection between this verse and tomorrow's verse. Yeah. I'll read the translation again here. I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna Vasudeva, personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the supreme controller. So, in answer to the question being asked by Narada, Lord Brahma is very clearly explaining his position, that he is it's one of those verses that actually not so difficult to remember. That is very clearly stating the position of Lord Brahma, which is also, Prabhupada gives the quotation from the Brahma Samhita, the first verse of the 5th chapter, often quoted by devotees as well. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That Govinda means Krishna is the cause of all causes, and he is that personality having a transcendental form, Vigraha, Archa Vigraha. In all of our temples around the world, we have the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord. So the Lord exists in his original transcendental form, and he appears in that transcendental form, seemingly changing, because when Krishna appears, he appears as a small baby, and then he grows up to become a young child, then a youth. But Krishna does not go beyond aging as a youth. That's another verse in the Brahma Samhita. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam purana purusham navayovanam cha. Navayovanam cha. He is eternally youthful. In the Bhagavatam, one section is describing the bodily features of Krishna, and mentioning that Krishna, when he was in his ripe old age, Krishna was, how old was Krishna on the battle of Kurukshetra? He was 95, but not one of his hair was totally black. Nowadays we see people at the age of 25 or 30, hair starting to become white. If at all they have hair. Some people don't even have hair. It's not uncommon to see young men actually also starting to lose their hair. Krishna's hair is eternally black, never becomes a gray. And Krishna does not age beyond being a youth. Navayovanam cha. That is the difference between Krishna and ordinary living entity. So, in the purport, the Prabhupada is explaining, further elaborating on the verse, how Krishna's invincible potency called Maya misleads the conditioned soul into accepting so many people as God, and those persons who accept to be worshipped as God are also foolish in believing that they are actually God. Prabhupada uses quite strong words, as often he does. Foolish persons praised by men of the nature of dogs and hogs and camels and asses feel flattered to be addressed as the Supreme Lord. So this is all taking place due to the very powerful illusory energy of the Lord. So Prabhupada explains also how Brahmaji, being the most elevated personality in the universe with very highly developed consciousness, he is conscious of his actual position. So actually, a devotee is very important. A devotee, sign of a devotee is that he's always conscious of his position as eternal servant, as menial servant, as very insignificant. The more one is conscious of one's position, then naturally one will become humble, isn't it? The more we are forgetful of our identity, of our actual position, we falsely become puffed up. We falsely develop pride. So sometimes people ask the question, how not to be proud? Well, meditate on who you are. Keep in mind, you're very insignificant. You know, this whole world is going on by somebody else's potency, not by my potency. We cannot even to speak of what's going on outside of our body, isn't it? We are residing in this body, but we know practically nothing of this body. So, to help us understand and remember our very actually fallen, an advanced devotee considers himself fallen. The more one is advanced, the more one considers oneself fallen, because one understands that I have somehow come in this material world. I have left the sublime eternal service of my Lord in the spiritual world. I have left the sublime association of devotees. A majority of us who have not been born in Vaishnava family. That's why Srila Prabhupada glorifies or appreciates and underlines the importance of those fortunate souls who are born in Vaishnava families, quoting his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, quoting himself actually, Prabhupada says, I, by the Lord's mercy, also was fortunate to be born in the Vaishnava family. And then whenever there was a Guru Puja in the early days with all of the devotees, the men and the women with their small children. Prabhupada had the children like to go to Guru Puja, because at the end of Guru Puja, Prabhupada would give out cookies. And you've seen, I'm sure, some of the photos and pictures. Nice videos are there. Prabhupada, he would tell all of these young boys, these children actually, still very young, they're so fortunate because from early childhood, they get to hear the chanting of the holy name. They get to see beautiful form of the Lord on the altar. They get to take Krishna Prasadam. They have the good fortune uh, of having parents who are understanding what is their real interest. Otherwise, Bifale Sevinu Kripana Dwarajan. That is the condition of the vast majority of people. Bifale Sevinu, people are engaged in activities that bifal. Bifal means which don't bring any good result, isn't it? Without benefit. Majority of people are engaged in work and activities or professions that that they don't, first of all, most of them don't like what they're doing. And they're being exploited to a large extent, very badly also. So much exploited that people find it practically intolerable and commit suicide. Difale Sidinu Kripana Durajana. Because they are being, they are under the control of people who are very hard-hearted, Durajana, people who don't care for them. They simply want to use them or to exploit them. We see that especially when young graduates, I don't know if that happened to you or not, but when young graduates, after laboring very hard for so many years at the college or university, they graduate, finally get their diploma. And then their first job, because they're brand new on the job, they're forced to work overtime without getting paid. Because if you want to keep your job, you have to follow what the boss says. So this is what happens when we are not in the company, not living in the company of Vaishnavas, of devotees. So becoming conscious, becoming Krishna conscious means understanding our actual position and appreciating appreciating and thanking the Lord for having given us, all of us who have come to Krishna consciousness, giving us that opportunity to wind up our affairs in the material world. So otherwise, so this point is being made here by Lord Brahma, that he is, although he is in the most exalted position, he's like the number one in the company, you know. But he is not bewildered by that position, and he's expressing here in this nice prayer, and it will be continued. Actually, we can also go to the next verse since it's intimately connected. Also, purport is not long purport. So we'll read text number 13. Mm. Vilajamanaya yasya statum ikshapate muya vimohita vikatante mamaham iti dur dhiya. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. The illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position. But those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of it is I and it is mine. Purport. The invincibly powerful deluding energy of the personality of Godhead, or the third energy representing nescience, can bewilder the entire world of animation. But still, she is not strong enough to be able to stand in front of the Supreme Lord. Nescience is behind the personality of Godhead, where she is powerful enough to mislead the living beings. And the primary symptom of bewildered persons is that they talk nonsense. Haribol. This word nonsense has a very uh, special significance, I think, in India. If you Prabhupada used that term a lot, you know, uh, sometimes when chastising devotees, nonsense, you know, he would use that word very often. And I've seen, I've had personal experience observing when, especially people in India, are somehow addressed as nonsense, they don't like it, naturally. But I think especially, maybe because people in India, Prabhupada mentions how birth in India is not ordinary birth. Uh, Actually, very, very elevated, most elevated birth is here in India, not Canada or USA. Um, so, in all likelihood, because it's part of the culture, uh, those who are born in India are meant to be, are actually elevated. But unfortunately, being Kali Yuga, many, if not the, you know, very large percentage, forget their nature or identity. And if somehow they happen to be addressed as nonsense, they take it even more seriously, which is good. Nonsense. Nonsense. Uh, it was one of Prabhupada's favorite words. And he used it a lot in the Western countries because there was a lot of nonsense going on. You know, anyone who is not in tune, in line with the Vedic culture is a nonsense. Uh, nice word. So, especially the point is being made here, and we can see it every day. It is all pervading. We are totally surrounded by useless talks, nonsense talks. And it's amazing how it's like nowadays Prabhupada mentions how, because it's very easy uh, through technology, any nonsense person can write his own book. And so many books are written by nonsensical persons, isn't it? which was not the case previously. So we're halfway through this nice purport here. Nonsensical talks are not supported by the principles of Vedic literature. And first grade nonsense talk is, it is I, it is mine. First grade, first class nonsense talk. A godless civilization is exclusively conducted by such false ideas and such persons without any factual realization of God, accept a false God, or falsely declare themselves to be God, to mislead persons who are already bewildered by the deluding energy. People are already misled, already under the influence, very heavily under the influence of Maya. And then some false God comes along and further misleads them. Those who are those who are before the Lord, however, and who surrender unto Him, cannot be influenced by the deluding energy. Therefore, they are free from the misconception of it is I and it is mine. And therefore, they do not accept the false God or pose themselves as equal to the Supreme Lord. Identification of the bewildered person is distinctly given in this verse. Yeah, very one of the fundamental teachings in the Bhagavad Gita as well. Of course, this is the root disease of all the conditioned souls. Very deeply rooted disease, the disease called ahankara, false ego, false identification. And the whole world is actually presently under the influence of this false understanding, and therefore everyone considering themselves to be the center, naturally they clash with other centers. That simple example, often given by Srila Prabhupada, then that when we understand and accept that Krishna is the center, then there can be harmony. There is no need, there will be no clashes. The example of the pebble, if we throw a pebble, small rock, in a pond, that rock will, by falling in the water, will make rings. And if 10 people throw at different places, there will be 10 different types of circles. They will all clash with one another. But if those 10 same individuals throw a rock, their small pebble, in the same place, then everything is harmonious. There will be no clash. So that's why in the context of Varnasrama, this Daiva Varnasrama is bringing that very important dimension of divinity, divine service, divine culture. When all the members of the 4 Varnas and Ashramas are centered on serving Krishna, then there is no undue competition or clash between these different classes within Varna and Ashrama. But if that focus, that center central focus is not there, then naturally there will be undue clash or competition. So let's just read again these two verses we have heard this morning, uh, beginning with text number 12. I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them meaning the less intelligent class of men, to call me the supreme controller. And text 13, the illusory energy of the Lord cannot take precedence, being ashamed of her position, but those who are bewildered by her always talk nonsense, being absorbed in thoughts of it is I and it is mine. Aham mameti. Aham. I, the concept of I and mine, yeah, which is very strongly nurtured actually from our birth, uh, when we are unfortunate to have as guides and instructors or parents who are lacking in this understanding, consciousness. So, any thoughts or comments on this?
And they are accepting different demigods or sometimes different personalities of Baba and all that.
Yes.
And the Supreme. So and they are very much adamant about their philosophy, very much convinced.
Yes.
Even sometimes I saw in some villages they have some Gramya Devata.
Yes, Gramya Devata.
They're very much convinced that
Ye-
is supreme.
Yes, they are the all in all. Yes.
So how we should approach
How we should approach such persons who have strong conviction that their Gramya Devata is the supreme personality of Godhead or whatever. We have to approach them with prasadam. We have to see so many people, because of the influence of the external energy, which is being mentioned here. So their consciousness needs to be broadened. Their consciousness needs to be purified, and that is a gradual process. Um, we have to uh, gradually uh, uh, give them opportunity uh, to become purified through different means, such as chanting, such as prasadam, such as good association, such as cultivation of knowledge. The majority of people are not understanding, are not even aware actually, that there are three modes of material nature, isn't it? Most people are just not knowing about the fundamental concepts and principles that are there in the Bhagavad Gita. So we have to induce them gradually to to read such literatures as the Bhagavad Gita. Then they will come to know about these modes of material nature and how some of their activities are actually performed under these lower modes of material nature. So one has to be, just like Prabhupada explains, that when I went to the Western countries, I didn't have a long list of, do nots to do. I simply encourage people to chant and to hear, Sravanam, Kirtanam, two most powerful processes in the practice of bhakti devotional service. So Prabhupada did not was very conscious of the uh, very fallen condition. Anyone who is outside of the Vedic culture generally are simply not aware, for example, of these four principles, isn't it? These are the four principles of Satyam, Daya, Tapa, Saucham, uh, the what we call pillars of dharma, the four pillars of dharma, are unknown to the vast majority of people because they commit activities which are against these principles. So we have to gradually. That's why we are meant, especially here in India, to go in the villages. And our first business when we go in villages is simply to make friendship with people, to befriend people, to to show that we are um, there to help, to share things that are part of the Vedic culture, just like food, for example. Majority of people are are not vegetarian, uh, so of course some some leaders want to argue that we should allow people to eat whatever they want to eat. No, yeah, it's a logical no. In today's modern world of democracy and equal rights, equal opportunity, freedom of speech, freedom of action, why should we prohibit people to eat what they want to eat? Isn't it? A free world, after all. Yeah. So people are being misled in so many ways. So therefore, gradually, uh, devotees have to be very expert in, dealing with all kinds of situations which will be very different from one place to another. I mean, every individual is an individual. He's different from others. We're all, that's how we are created. So therefore, one of the qualities of a devotee is that he is daksha. Daksha means expert. One has to become very expert in dealing with different situations, and we cannot expect people immediately to change, uh, but they need to be. That's why Bhagavad Gita is so important. They need to know that there are uh, two ways, what is called pravriti marg and nivriti marg. They need to know what is the difference. It's not that everything, modern modern philosophy, modern way is everything goes, everything is okay. You're okay, I'm okay, we're all okay. This is modern philosophy. You do what you want, uh, as long as there is consent between two individuals. What's the problem? You know. So people in this way are lacking in proper understanding. So that's one of the fundamental principles mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Pravritim cha nivritim cha. Jana navidur asura. Those who don't know. Jana navidur. Those who don't know the difference between what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is bad. Um, they are classified, identified in the Bhagavad Gita as demoniac, asura. you know, unclear, imperfect, muddled consciousness, muddy consciousness. Cannot see or understand things properly. So devotees have to gradually approach individuals. It's just like when we were going through the different villages in our Dharma Gogram Yatra. You know, because devotees are by nature friendly. Um, the devotees have these natural qualities um, of being caring, uh, being friendly, giving, distributing uh, prasadam, so many different activities that gradually will bring people to become uh, favorable to devotees. And then slowly, gradually, people, uh, that's what happens. People become a little inquisitive and start asking uh, about uh, our lifestyle as devotees, etc., and why we do what we do, why we get up early in the morning, why we spend time uh, hearing from Shastra, why we take vegetarian food, all of these different things gradually, slowly. So that's all nicely explained in the nine process, isn't it, of devotional activities. Means uh, Shraddha, creating a situation where people can develop some faith uh, in devotees in the process of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, they will, if they don't have this proper knowledge and understanding, they will continue their practices, which will not at all be beneficial to them, of course.
Sometimes they take it as a conversion, just take it South India, mass, mass, mass conversion.
Mass conversion.
Yeah. So sometimes people take it as a conversion that you have taken a new dharma, Islam dharma. You
That,
religion,
that is, there is such a thing, especially here in India, but not only in India, of mass conversion. uh, Generally, that is done out of sentiment and for some immediate gain, material gain. You'll have half a dozen chickens. You'll have different some money, possibly, etc., like that. If you follow this particular path or religion. So again, it comes to properly what is dharma, uh, understanding the difference between dharma and religion. So that requires proper. Everything is based on proper education. On educating the mass of persons. So uh, conversion is not necessarily a bad thing because you know from Shastra we understand that the vast majority of people uh, are conditioned by the modes of material nature. So that situation is the cause of all of our suffering and problems in the material world. That also is explained very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, uh, there's a need to, I suppose, similar to the word, what is it, brainwashing. Uh, brainwashing, as it is generally understood, is not good. You know, brainwashing means by deceiving methods, by cheating methods, change the mentality of someone, and that was something very prominent. I mean, in the Western countries, in the early days of the movement, the devotees were being accused of brainwashing um, the young men and women of of the country. Some parents were very disturbed, and we even had. I mean, I'm sure you've heard about it. I mean, huh? Yeah, deprogrammers. There were people who were especially hired to to deprogram uh, people who had become Hare Krishna devotees. People were kidnapped, actually, so many things. So Prabhupada gave the proper meaning to brainwashing by explaining that, yes, if your brain is dirty, we will wash it. Your brain is dirty because of the gunas, the three modes of material nature. You're not thinking properly. You don't know who you are, isn't it? You're talking all nonsense, as we're just reading. People who are not conscious of who they are, they're on this bodily platform of I am and it is mine. So brainwashing is very good in the context of purifying the brain, purifying the intelligence, purifying the consciousness. Transcendental knowledge is meant for that purpose, to purify the consciousness. So, yeah, it needs to be done intelligently, and every situation has to be taken into consideration also. We should close for now. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Sridham Prabhupada ki. All the